Sinda Anzovino is an innovative and well-respected yoga teacher, trainer, and advanced Thai yoga massage therapist. A mother of two, residing in White Plains, she's been teaching Vinyasa yoga since 2000. Sinda is the former owner of Yoga Journey, registered yoga school with Yoga Alliance 2005-2009. During that time, she created 200-hour teacher training course and certified many yoga teachers in Vinyasa and Kids Toddler Yoga. She also hosted some bigger names in the field, such as David and Doug Swenson, Journey Dance, Garish, Wah, and many others. In addition to her corporate and sometimes A-list private clientele, Sinda's classes are lively and fun and have attracted a loyal following. By being hands-on literally, Sinda guides her students to deepen their practice. Always offering challenges in a playful environment, her practice is no joke. Sinda, however, is not just a yoga teacher. At Open Culture, we were attracted by her strong writing skills and active use of social media. Besides maintaining her own blog, Sinda publishes regularly at such places like elephantjournal.com and yoganonymous.com, and is an active participant in social media forums such as Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. One of Sinda's articles will also be featured in the Wellbeing section of Bella NYC Magazine's July-August issue, which can be picked up at Barnes & Noble or most magazine kiosks in NYC. Their site is www.bellanyc.com. So in this regard, she's not only teaching yoga, but creating a whole unique voice for the practice and herself. You can find out more about her at yogabysinda.com. If you get the chance, don't miss the opportunity to learn from this unique teacher with a heart full of soul and a practice that will keep you smiling and focused. Hi, Sinda.
Hey, Ben.
So why don't you tell my fans a little bit about yourself?
I feel like you just told a lot.
Told the whole thing, huh? So
yeah.
when did you start teaching yoga?
I
So you
started,
start with that.
There you go. Okay. Shortly after college, I started teaching yoga at New York sports clubs, and I don't know, then I started expanding to some
Now, were you into like
studios.
kind of like yoga and stuff before that, or you just picked that just like, wow, I wanted to do some exercise and it appealed to you?
Believe it or not, I had found out when I was about 20 that I had a herniated disc in my back and that I was going to start showing late signs of arthritis. And I'm like, oh great, what do I do? And they're like, oh, try yoga. I'm like, okay. And I decide I'm not going to go try a gentle yoga. No, I'm going to go and throw myself into Ishta, which is another form of vinyasa, or a very active style, yoga zone style at the time. From there, it grew.
So you found like you had like a natural affinity for it?
I did.
I mean, why did it grow? Like, because you like, I mean,
did.
it really appealed to you, or was the physical effects, or both?
The first time I went, it was the competition. Believe it or not, I went and I took a class, and at the end of the class, I sat there rubbing my wrists, going, "How are these people doing it? And how dare yoga try and beat me?" And I had come from, a competitive background. I'd played soccer through college. I'd been cheerleader.
Oh, you actually played through this, and you were a cheerleader too, huh?
Yeah. Oh yeah, fun stuff.
For football?
For football and basketball.
Did you grow up around here, or?
I did. I grew up in Westchester. I graduated from Woodlands, and I've moved around between White Plains, Hartsdale, and Greenberg, all as a child. So just enough to switch in between the school districts, right
So
around,
you
which
got to meet
is
a lot
fun.
of different people?
Yeah, I got to
That
meet a
helped you
lot
with
of
your
different
communication skills?
Believe it or not, when Facebook came back, it helped a ton, because all of a sudden, so many people came out of the woodwork, and it's really helped with the social networking immensely.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Sinda's amazing Twitter and Facebook, and we'll get that out. And after the show, you should friend her, start the conversation with her directly.
Awesome. So anyway, what brought me back to the second class was the idea that yoga would not beat me, that I would find a way
Which
to
is
do
kind of
it.
like not like a yoga.
It's totally not
feeling.
yogic at all. It's the anti-yogic thing, which is why, even now, still working at New York Sports Club, I have so much more patience and understanding for people who come in from a very purely physical or goal-oriented state, because they haven't gotten it yet. They haven't figured it out. They haven't figured out that thing that's going to keep them there, that's going to really tune them into themselves.
Well, that's one of the things I always like about your classes. You do bring in that spiritual dimension, but obviously not too much. And I've seen other people get in trouble from corporate for making it sometimes too spiritual. So
Well,
but I find like you've had a nice balance with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it is completely a spiritual practice, and first and foremost, it must be. You know, in every class you'll always get breath work, you'll always have your own, we'll always set an intention, we'll always work with the basis from the sutras, from the Gita, from the spiritual
Maybe you should
texts
talk
that
to
it
the
come
audience
from.
too, like the different forms of yoga and the levels, just assuming like people out there don't know anything about it.
Well, the style of yoga that I teach is vinyasa, and vinyasa means flow. So when we're talking about flow, we're talking about not constantly moving, but connection of. So vinyasa yoga is flow style yoga, and it's probably closer to the more original styles of yoga, which essentially came down from Krishnamacharya, who was thought of as like the grandfather of yoga. He kind of kept it alive in India and then spread it over.
And wasn't yoga part of it too, about warrior training?
I don't know that it was so much about warrior training, because it was really a little more like established by monks out in caves that were very hermited and know, exploring enlightenment. Yeah, this was India. This is from Hinduism, and the first signs of stuff that they've found were found in like the Indus Valley. So that's sort of a background on that. But the initial style that Krishnamacharya taught was the Ashtanga Vinyasa style. And then he had several of who we now consider very famous, disciples. One of which was Pattabhi Jois, who passed away several years ago and is thought of as the founder of Ashtanga Yoga. And he developed
that means eight-limbed, right?
Eight-limbed yoga. And he designed that based on one of Krishnamacharya's books. Later came
was there something like Iyengar was a big guy in it?
BKS Iyengar was one of his disciples later. Indra Devi, who is known a little more for Vinaya Yoga, and his son TK Desikachar, who is also a little more yoga therapeutics. And each of these people were students at different points in his life. So the style of vinyasa I teach has a lot of alignment and form influence, like Iyengar, but it also has an awful lot of Ashtanga background to it.
And how did you pick that form, or did you
I think that was just sort of what I kind of wandered into. The initial style I wandered into was a very active, physical vinyasa
Which
style.
comes from the competitive space you were coming from?
I think it did, and the fact that that was what was most prevalent at the gym at the time, and I was like, oh, let me just try this. And then what brought me back to the second class was, oh, yoga can't beat me, and I became completely physically determined that I was going to have great form and great alignment, and that I was going to be able to do each and every one of these things that to me seemed perhaps should have been more simple than I was finding them to be as a first timer. And what you find as a newbie is something that you have to re-find once you're seasoned, which is each time you approach your mat, you have to approach it like a beginner. You have to bring your humility, you have to bring your honesty, and you have to give your time.
You're kind of always reinventing yourself?
I don't think it's so much a reinventing of yourself as self-observation or swadhyaya, self-study. It's a constant internal look at yourself. And in addition to my teaching schedule, which I teach 7 days a week, and I teach for New York Sports Club, I teach for Destination Maternity, I teach
maybe
privately.
You might want to tell them about your
but I
website,
also
how
have
they
my
can
own.
find.
Yeah, you could find me at www.yogabysinda.com.
And that has our full schedule up there. And then later on we'll talk about the Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah, and I'm also on LinkedIn as well. So in addition to all this stuff, I also have my own personal practice that I work on at home, or I'll use my
Which is
studio
important for a
space.
teacher, right? I've heard you say in class too, like how the teacher has to have their own practice and not get it from teaching.
If your teacher is doing the entire class, then the class is no longer about you, it's about the teacher. When I teach, I tell, show, do. I tell them how to do it, I demonstrate, and then I come around and assist by working with energy lines and doing safe motion assisting. I don't jump on a person, they give them various ideas.
I'm in Sinda's class, and you can feel the energy when she comes by. It's intense if you're open to that kind of stuff.
There you go. So, yeah.
But it's a gentle energy, so even though she's competitive, it's a friendly competition. She's just always
it's not
starting to get better.
competitive. It's not really competitive anymore.
That there is that spiritual side to yoga.
There's a huge spiritual side to yoga. Basically, all of yoga is spiritual. That's where it comes from. Yoga means to yoke or to unite, right? To bring together the mind and body.
And Hatha Yoga,
For
that
me,
means sun, moon?
Sun, moon, and it's just the yoga of oppositions. It means that you're constantly working to stretch and open the body, and generally it involves sun salutations in the beginning of a class. And Hatha in the world, or the science of yoga, is really the physical style of yoga. So there can be many derivatives of that, or subgenres. Like Vinyasa is a genre of Hatha Yoga, the same way Anyasara is, and Bikram, and Ashtanga, and Vini Yoga, and all those other different styles that come into play. But for me, within a year, my form was no longer an issue. At that point, the teacher I was taking it under started to ask me to set up my mat in the front of the class and be the demo. And then she would go around and assist, and I would do the whole class as she was verbalizing. And
you
eventually,
like being up there demonstrating it and saying, yeah, this works for me?
Yeah, I was like, okay, this is great. No problem. And then I started thinking, hey, what's my next step? Should I be going to a studio? Should I be, and the teacher at the time was like, oh, I'd love to, train you to teach, and then you can, eventually maybe subclasses.
Yeah, how do you actually get to become an official teacher? Maybe you want to mention a little bit of that process.
Well, now you definitely want to take a minimum 200-hour.
Because you also certify people now, right?
I do. I certified people under Yoga Alliance, which is yogaalliance.org. You can go there to find any accredited teacher that has met the requirements. That's sort of like the Registered Teachers Union, essentially, that maintains the standards so that whoever your teacher happens to be is one who's qualified and who can be touching you, versus Joe Schmo who decided they wanted to teach yoga and took a weekend course and just came out and was like, oh, here, I'm going to throw my hands on you, although I've never taken a day of anatomy ever. Right?
So that's part of being certified, learning, it would make sense.
Yeah, so part of being certified is really understanding deeper the body, movements, anatomy and physiology, asana, which is postures.
Is it like a 200-hour class or a course? How long does it take long to get certified?
You can take it in as little as probably a month, but I would recommend no teacher training less than a 6-month-long training, because you really need the time to become seasoned and experienced with teaching other people. That doesn't come from just trying. The comfort level and the ability to work with people at multiple levels at one time, it comes from experience, and the competitive thing, when did it disappear? It disappeared when one day I was like, well, it's no longer, why am I still here? Like, I had to turn to myself and really ask myself, why am I still here? What's keeping me here? I can do these poses now. I can go upside down. I can, everything that I was working towards, I was attaining, over whatever period of time and dedication. And what happened inside of me was transformation. It no longer became competitive. It became spiritual. It became essential. And that's why I said, while working in a gym, I have a lot of patience for people who come in with maybe that initial feeling that I had, that's competitive or physical based.
Especially in Westchester gyms to get that whole marketing, crazy business energy.
Yeah.
But that was actually, for me, became kind of like the lesson too, like not to be judgmental about that. Because I came more into yoga from like, the dead scene, hippies. Hippie loving. Yeah.
All that good stuff.
So it became a meditation for me not to be judgmental on them, because like, who am I to say, well, that's wrong,
Yeah.
So that became part of my practice and made me more open and less judgmental of individuals.
And that's huge. That's huge to hear anybody offer that. That, because that's a symbol of growth.
And then also to calm down, because like from when I started the gym yoga too, it would freak me out too, like their energy and stuff, because and stuff. I'm just used to having like dead music cranking, etc., etc.
I used to joke and say, anybody who's walking by thinks that we're all just standing still. And
that's an interesting
when you
thing
look
too.
The most still is when you're usually using the most atoms, muscles, action in your body.
Well, like when you get to the point in the sun salutation, and we're going to show a video of yoga, Cinda's doing a great demonstration of it, but when you get to the
We're going to do Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salutation Variation A. Come to the top of your mat. Bring your hands to your heart. Inhale, sit down in a chair, looking up. Exhale, swan dive down to the floor. Inhale, extend your spine forward with a flat back. And exhale, step back to down dog. Inhale, shift forward to plank. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. Maintaining this posture for 5 breaths. Being mindful to spread your fingers and your toes. Inner rotate the thighs and outer rotate the shoulders. And really try and engage your Uddiyana Bandha, your lower abdominal energy lock. After your 5th full breath, look to your hands and step forward to forward bend. Exhale in. Inhale to chair. Looking up. And exhale to stand. Samastiti. Take 5 more sets. This has been Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salutation A. Namaste.
Pose, which is the 5 breaths.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of the irony too, which was hard for me at first to get, like when the teacher said, like, this is your rest pose.
Yeah, this
and
is
I'd be
your
like,
rest
my
pose.
arms are killing me, and this is the rest
doesn't
pose.
feel restful to me.
But after been doing the practice, I started as a kid doing yoga, so I mean, well, 15, and I did it religiously for about 22. Then I got out of it, and then I came back to it in my mid-30s as a way to relax, you know, from doing the work. But I've been consistently since '99 doing the class and the practice, and then somewhere, it took a while, but somewhere down the road, all of a sudden, like, now I understand this is the rest pose.
Yeah.
I was taking the pressure out of the arms, is more bringing it into the core.
You're working with your bandhas a little bit more.
You
Yeah,
know,
and it takes a long time to really start to get into the energy work, the deep internal energy work that comes with the practice, that comes
now,
with
when
the
you say
breath.
energy, maybe you could explain a little bit of that. I know what you mean, but for
Yeah.
the
Well,
folks
when
out
I'm
there.
talking about energy, I'm talking about there's a bunch of different styles of energy. There's pranic energy which is breath-based energy. There's, you know, chakra energy, which is
sort of like chi energy, what they say in the Tai Chi form.
sort of their energy wheels. The major ones are kind of located from the base of the sacrum to the crown of the head, and they're done like the colors of the spectrum. So it's Roy-G Biv from bottom to the top, which was always my way of remembering it. And then your minor chakras are generally found at all of your joints.
And what is a chakra, for those who don't know?
A chakra is a spinning energy wheel, and it's the location where 2 energy channels or nadis cross. And at that cross is the chakra, is the path.
So a big point of yoga too is the balance your chakras and energy, right?
Is to keep is to keep everything luminous, to keep everything open, to keep everything clear, to keep everything flowing, and your chakras spin in opposing directions. Believe it or
That's
not.
also it's to calm the mind down so you can detach, because ultimately the practice of yoga, at least for the monks, was the step before meditating.
Right.
Is that correct?
Well, there's a lot of different elements when you're looking at yoga. In a class setting, you might not have quite as much experience with pratyahara, which is like a sensory withdrawal, which might be a little more of the monk's style of non-attachment, you know, and that's a little more, I think, involved in Buddhism aspect, whereas like the true background of yoga, while it does have a lot of Buddhist background, it really is initiated with the Hinduism, and Buddhism, as we know, came from Hinduism. So when you're talking about it, it's just, I don't even know.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about yoga, though. You don't even necessarily have to know. So let's bring it now more into like your writing skills and the social media, because you've been making quite a name for yourself too. Like, so talk about, like, you have an upcoming article in the Bella magazine.
Okay. All right. So Bella NYC, I will still show it anyway. This is their past article with Jessica Alba on the front. Is this wonderful, rising beauty magazine that's covering all of the boroughs of the city, the editor-in-chief, Courtney Cooper Hall, has created just this phenomenal magazine that incorporates more than you would think for beauty. Her mission is beauty is defined by you. So they're big on organic, big on natural, the things that...
And kind of empowering a woman?
Empowering women, all about really focusing on women of different ages and the beauty and the grace that's involved.
So something getting out of that cosmopolitan, this limiting.
Yeah, it's not just that one person.
Yeah,
yeah it's really, you know, and they do have a thing where they have this ageless or timeless, you know, beauty, and they show women that are beautiful in different stages and stuff, and I think it's just really lovely. I think that while this is already just blowing up, you can find them at Barnes & Nobles, you can find them at every...
And you're going to be in the July-August issue?
I'm going to be in the July-August issue
and
in the well-being section. So the article is 5 reasons why you ought to do yoga with your baby. And
you should talk about that too.
Pretty convincing, I think.
You have a very rigorous teaching thing on that.
I do. I teach 3 days at Destination Maternity. I teach prenatal yoga and mommy and me yoga.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. Now I know my ABCs. Next time, won't you sing with me? Yay! Good. Tell mommy it's okay. Everybody open up your squat.
As well, and
is that something that came out of when you were pregnant and you learned about it, or did you already know that before that?
I had already started it before I was pregnant with my first child, but I certainly did do it through both my pregnancies and post-pregnancies, and my kids are into yoga right now too. And
I just think it's really interesting too, like to have like you know, a mother like doing yoga and stuff. Like when I was in my mother's room, she was, you know, still smoking and drinking scotch, and that's why I might be particularly crazy.
There
my fans are used to it, but still here.
Well, there you go. Right? It's all, well, everybody's had their wild ways.
But isn't that seems to be like more and more of a growing thing, like
now
women when during the pregnancy, like doing something like yoga.
Yeah, everybody flocks there, and what's cool is, you know, last year at Destination Maternity we made Westchester Magazine's Best of Westchester for prenatal and mommy and me yoga. So that was pretty awesome, you know.
And you read about that in your blog too. And where can they find your blog?
They can find my blog at yogabycinda.blogger.com.
Because I know you've had some articles on that. I mean, I read it because you're a good writer. I know this is not going to necessarily apply to me today, but
sure.
Cinda's a great writer, so it's just fun to read her style anyway.
Yeah, I tend to, I was an English major.
One of the first ones was on how to have better sex, so I read that one several times.
That one might be coming out with Elephant Journal. Yeah. So hopefully, because that one got sent in, maybe being worked on.
Which is all focusing on Kundalini, right? Or
no.
Not as much?
No, we're
or
not.
Or Tantra, or like?
No.
Okay. I'm bringing my own prejudices.
You're bringing your own thing in. You're thinking Kama Sutra, and you're going somewhere else.
Yeah.
I
quite often do, as people who watch the show are familiar with it, but that's a whole other talk.
I'm a little more. I think earthbound, a little more grounded. So you'll have some of these. What I found when I was teaching at my own studio and I was teaching prenatal yoga, I had some woman who came in White Plains. Yep, it was initially on Mamaroneck Avenue and then Maple. I had one woman who came in and was like, "Oh, I had a baby and it was this orgasmic experience and blah blah." And I'm looking at her like, "What drugs did they give you and how come I missed out on that boat?"
Yeah.
You know, because my take on it was not the same. I find it. I teach it with humor. I get into the gory details. I think about all the things that no one ever shared with me when I was going through it. And I'm like, here's the stuff they won't tell you, but don't let me scare you. So my teaching style in that way, it's fun, it's lax, it's real. And if
I can testify
if someone who's looking,
Sinda for a couple of years, and it is all that.
Yeah, and if someone's looking for something that's a little more foo-foo or out there, then I'm not the right connection for you. I'm really about throwing it down. I'm really about keeping it real. I'm about making the yoga accessible to everyone, making it accessible today. If you have a hard time with something, I'm about taking baby steps back to help you learn properly with correct form. And I take it seriously. You know, as much as I'm lighthearted and easygoing in a class, I am very serious about the practice and the form. And people
Well,
who
that
tend
also
to
infuses your energy in the writing, and people can also find some of your writings at Elephant Journal.
elephantjournal.com, they could search up Sinda. I've actually got at least 3 articles to them so far, 2 of
How do
which
you come
made
up with an
top
idea
10
for an
blogs
article?
of the week
How do
for
you,
their things. So that was great.
how do you come up with an idea for these articles? Is there something on your mind that day, or do you have a more of a plan, or
Well,
a
you
little bit
know,
of both?
you know, you're a creative spirit too. So you know, sometimes you just need a form of expression. You know, in college I was an English major. I wrote poetry. Believe it or not, that was my thesis. and so
That's
writing.
why you're probably not on Wall Street.
There you go. Writing was always a form of expression. So now, when I'm writing, I'm sometimes I'm pulling from emotion. Sometimes I'm thinking about the things that are going on in my classes. Sometimes I'm thinking about the things that are going on in my life. Sometimes I'm thinking about the things that just aren't being focused on anywhere else, you know? And sometimes I just sit there and just free write and see where it takes me, and I go, oh, I'm all over the place. Time to close it up for the night.
So talk a little bit about like now the Facebook and the Twitter, because that brings you into like a dynamic interaction, right, with your audience.
All right, so, and believe it or not, and Pinterest too.
Oh yeah.
All right, so you can find me everywhere.
So how do they find you on Facebook?
On Facebook, you can go to facebook.com/yoga by Sinda, and you'll find my page.
And then if they like it, then they join the conversation.
They like it, they can join the conversation, they can post to the wall, they can get more information. I post every single day
And
where
you're
and
also
when
on
I'm
YouTube.
teaching. I have my own YouTube
So
channel.
we should talk about that too. Sinda does a lot of great videos, so if you can't make the class, or for whatever reason, you can just dial her up and then do the class kind of like right there.
Right now I have about 23 how-to.
And that's also Yoga by Sinda on YouTube?
It's
or?
youtube.com/yoga by Sinda. And you can subscribe to my channel, and every time I upload a new video, they'll let you know. And I try to upload one every couple days.